And then I think I have to turn this over. I think I did this right. Yes. Okay, Santa, you should now be the host.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. I'm going to fire this up really quickly. You guys can see my screen, I assume. Yes. Can you guys see that okay?
Yep.
Fantastic. I'm just going to rearrange some of the screens because, of course, Zoom doesn't like to do everything the way that I want it to. So, I know that Asim was asking about Dragon Teach in the chat just a moment ago. So what I've done is, hang on a second, I think it's decided to switch, of course. It doesn't want to do exactly what I want it to do. There we go. There, that's what I wanted. Okay, so what I'm going to show you today is actually pretty simple stuff. It's going to be very basic. If you don't already have a like a sandbox or something that you want to be able to use, then you can use one of the ones that I have on Kira's site. If you go to shanta.dragonteach.com, there's a course on there that you should be put to, which is the NEO Gutenberg workshop. And as Kira said, and no, I am not being paid to use this and say these things. I use this because it helps me teach. And yes, Kira is quite right. We used to teach at Sheridan College, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my own self, but to give you an idea, the whole point of Dragon Teach is that everybody gets their own installation of Dragon Teach, their own installation that they control where they are the administrator, and it's not a multi-site, which is the key to this, okay? So everybody gets to control their own. You know, maybe David, if you want to ever maybe have Kira come on and do her own demo, she can probably do that. But the beauty about this is that after about 3 months, the accounts die. This is not meant to be a permanent hosting facility. And what'll happen is after 3 months, you basically get a notification that you either download it or you can go and find hosting. Right. So that's why I use this system, because it's not meant to be a permanent one. And they're basically just, quote, throwaway accounts that give the people that are using it full access to what they need. But I can control what gets installed to begin with. So I basically start off with a template, say, install this brand with this plugin, with these themes, etc. And away we go. And some of the testers that we used to use were things like testing a child theme. So if you, as a student, have actually installed the wrong theme, or you've submitted an assignment with the wrong theme, we know about it. It will also tell us, did you create a child theme? Yes or no? Did you do the things we asked you to do? So that's effectively what this does. And it's really, really an amazing tool. And it's specifically designed for higher education, but I like to use it even in my own stuff. So. Okay, so this is our beginner Gutenberg workshop. This is actually the cover slide that I used at my last presentation. A couple of people that, you know, are really cool. I've been doing this whole remembering WordCamps hashtag on Twitter and stuff for the last month or so since I did the presentation at Rochester. These are just some of those fun people. So I'm going to give you a quick idea about me. I'm going to build the site. We're going to go through an about page, a contact page, how you set your blog page if your front page is a static, right? So once you set up the home page, you have to tell it, okay, so which page is my blog page? And then we'll set up a menu really quickly so that people can navigate around. So this is me. I am the president and CEO of Namara Technologies Inc, which I started this past year. I was laid off before COVID started, and I decided to start my own company. So Kira and Matt are actually a couple of my cohorts that I use on a regular basis for my own company, but we partner on a regular basis. I am a former professor of web development and design at Sheridan College. I was there for about 6 years teaching WordPress. We taught everything from user interfaces to information architecture, but we used WordPress as our main tool to teach students about the design. They would learn about the color theory and everything else in other classes. And then we'd say, okay, now we're going to help you learn how to code this. I'm also the co-organizer for WordPress Hamilton. And I've given more than 40 WordCamp talks over the last few years. Fun fact, did you know that WordPress Northeast Ohio used to be called WordPress North Canton? Did you know that both Kira and I attended WordCamp North Canton in 2015? We actually were there. Yeah, he's like,
Oh, so was I.
yeah, when Joe Rosa ran it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were the weird Canadians that came in. Yeah. Yeah. So I actually did the intro to the dashboard talk that day, and it was a lot of fun. And then we took off to Cleveland and went to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and stuff. So it was really great, really great road trip. So, okay. So as I mentioned before, if you want to go to shanta.dragonteach.com to get an installation, I don't recommend that you do any of what I'm doing on a live site. Because we're going to be changing things like the front page, and things have to be published in order for you to do the things you need to do. So I really do recommend, if you don't have a staging site, please go and use one here, okay? All right, this is the site that I'm going to use. It's called Tantien Hime. It's a, basically it's like my WordCamp demo site. You don't have to, but because you're going to see what I'm doing anyways, but if you want to see it for yourself and refresh, you just won't get the back end. What you'll see there is actually the slide deck. Get it? Deck. This is actually a deck that Kira and I helped out on at Milwaukee in 2015. We actually helped them build a deck. This was our contributor day as far as I was concerned. So that corner right there is still considered sovereign territory by the Canadians, because at one time it was only Canadians building the deck. So yeah, outsourcing at its best. We're going to come back to the resources afterwards and some of the questions, of course, but I'll show you what some of the stuff that we're going to do. So I'm basically just going to do a live demo from here on in. So I'm going to cancel this. Give me 1 second and I'll switch over to, and I'm going to, so many windows, I swear. Okay. There we go. Can everyone see? Welcome to Shanta's courses. Okay. Yep. So this is the Dragon Teach site, if you ever need it. But I don't think your view is going to be a little bit different than mine if you first go there. But if you want to find me and things like that, that's one of the places. Okay. So what we're going to do today is we are going to build this site. The idea of this is to just get going, get started, and to really do this on a quick basis. The original version of this talk was build 3 pages in 30 minutes. And I actually did time this when I actually presented this at Buffalo in 2019, and I did it, okay? Now, this is assuming that you have everything written, you have all your assets, okay? So take it with a grain of salt. But the idea here is to basically give you the basic building blocks for the things that you need to have to build your site, like on the very, very basics, okay? So, so this is my Tantien Hime site. This is my WordCamp test site. So we're gonna start first with building the About page, okay? So if we go here, don't worry about everything else that's here. We're just gonna literally start as if there was nothing here, okay? At this point, I'm assuming that everyone has at least a basic idea of, you know, how to input just the basics like text and whatnot. But if not, then yeah, by all means, let me know. So first of all, we're going to create a page really simply. And we're not going to use the original About Me. So I'm just going to add a new page. And this is going to be about Shanta, okay? You'll notice also that I can actually still see my sideboard or my side panel because I actually changed it. There is in this top corner, when you first open Gutenberg and a page out of a fresh install or a new install, you'll be automatically in this full screen mode. I don't like that. I like to be able to navigate to see where I'm going, that kind of thing. That's how I would at least start with it and go from here, okay? So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm actually just gonna copy a bunch of text, okay? So what I'm doing is, what you may not be able to see is I'm actually copying a bunch of text out of my bio in a Word document, okay? And all I'm gonna do is a Control V, okay? I have some links in it, there's no images, but there's some links and maybe some minor formatting. I am a person who likes to have the, you have a theme for a reason. So as far as I'm concerned, I let the theme deal with things like what kind of font it is, what colors, et cetera, okay? To me, if you're going to be consistent across everything, you should do that more or less at the theme level, unless it's just a one-off, okay? So all I'm going to do is do Control V. Now, what you'll notice is this and this, etc. These are all separate blocks. So all I did was take a Word document that already had my content in it and literally just pasted it into the editor of Gutenberg. And it already knows that I have separate blocks, okay? So each one of these is a paragraph type block, right? The other thing that you'll notice is it also kept all the links. So the beauty about this is you don't have to go and retype it all. You don't have to go and separate it all, assuming that, oh my God, what if it thinks that it's all in one single block? It's not. These are all individual blocks. So it does that automatically. So you don't have to go and reformat it all. Does that make sense to everybody so far? Any questions about that? I know this is really basic, but I wanted to give it sort of an idea of these are sort of the basic things that you need, and here's how you're going to build it pretty quick, right? All right, so the other thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to insert an image underneath. This is the one part that really gets a little bit tricky, is this whole, how do I add something underneath? It's always really difficult to find the button. So now what they've done is they've actually, you know, I just went to the end of it, I hit enter and I get a new one, but I can also now add a block from the left side. It used to be buried and things like that. Now I can just click here and it literally just opens up all of the things. If you install a plugin that has its own blocks, then this even then gets larger, okay? The other thing I like about it is that it also gives me an idea of what it's going to look like. It gives me sort of an appearance of, oh, this is what kind of thing I'm looking at. This is what a pull quote looks like. This is what, you know, a pre-formatted looks like. This is a verse, et cetera, okay? And the list goes on and on and on. Now, these are all items that are basically out of the box. The only thing that is in addition to what's here is that I've installed Gravity Forms. That's it. Okay, everything else here is basically out of the box. Okay, so for this right now, I am going to install an image, and I can also just search for it, right? And it will give me whatever. I can also do an embed from Flickr, which I store a lot of my photos there as well. I know that Kira does because she helps me with all of my photos. I can just go to the media library or upload it directly from here. I think I have a whole bunch in the media library anyways. Yes, there I am. I've already got this already put in. Again, I'm not trying to teach you every step of this, but basically how you do this quickly, because I'm assuming that you know a lot of this, but please do let me know if there's anything that you don't know, okay? Okay, so there's my image. I can also preview it. And now in some of the more recent ones, you can either do desktop, tablet, or mobile view. I'm still figuring out how I can just default this to desktop and just go, but all right. So this is what it looks like, right? Pretty simple stuff, right? And then from here, you can then start to play with it. You can, you know, add, you can add more, you can add whatever those things are that you would need. You can also change the alignment of the image. You can now even crop it in place. Okay, which is also really kind of cool. So if I needed to crop this at all, sorry, Kira, I'm going to crop you out of your photo. This is actually Kira here because she's the one taking the photo. And I can even just sort of bring this in. How do I do that? There we go. And I'm done. I can also say I want to align it left. I want to align it center. I want to make it full width? I want to just make it wide? Or just back to center? Okay. And I wouldn't worry too much if it doesn't show that it is aligned to the left or to the center here. The key is it aligned on the actual document itself? So I'm going to hit preview. I'm going to hit desktop again. And it is actually to the center. Questions about that one? No? Okay, cool. So the other thing I'm going to do here really quickly is I am going to also add a button. Because the one big thing you want to have is calls to action, right? You want to be able to say, contact me, right? That's a big thing. And you can also change the colors. You can do all those kinds of things. Now, right now, of course, assuming I don't have any other content right now, I can't link to my contact page because we haven't built it yet. Okay, so I'm going to leave this as it is, but I'm also going to align this to the center, which is a bit of a pain unless you know where you're going. So what I did was I wasn't selecting the actual contents. I was selecting the block itself. Okay, so what I did was I went up here to the block navigation, and while I'm not editing the button itself, I'm actually editing buttons and aligning those to the middle. This took me a while to sort of figure out. So that was a pretty big one for me, pretty big insight, okay? Again, this doesn't have a link yet because we haven't created the contact page. Questions so far? That's your About Me page. Really, done. Okay, so I'm gonna publish this. I'm gonna check the document and see which permalink I'm gonna get. It's about Shanta. I'm gonna hit publish. Yes, I'm okay with this. Now, if you recall, when I go back to the WordCamp test site, this is the actual site itself. I've now published that page. Yeah, it doesn't show anything. I'm gonna come back to this, but I wanted you to deal with this because, or I wanted you to see how this functions because everybody assumes that the menu is done for you, and it can be, but I am a big geek when it comes to information architecture and wayfinding. So we're going to do that last, but I wanted you to see if I publish that page and it's not part of a navigation, where is it? How do people find it, right? And it's not there, okay? Make sense? Cool, all right. So now what I'm going to do is create the contact page. And a little bit of a disclaimer on this is that I used to use, what was it called now? I used to use Jetpack's contact page. Yeah, no, not happening. I actually had my Shanta.ca site go down because Jetpack screwed up somehow, and I will not trust it ever again. As a matter of fact, I think Kira had to actually help me to revive it because it was dead. I couldn't even get into it. That was before you had all the funky tools about being able to get into your WordPress site. Yeah, no, not happening. So now I use Gravity Forms. That's just my own personal choice. So I'm going to say contact Shanta, just because it's going to be easier to decipher between that and say another page that I've already done. Okay. So what we're going to do is just create a form. This is going to be really, really simple. I'm going to create, this is the Gravity Forms here. This is a premium edition that I have. They do have a free edition in the WordPress repo, I think. But this is, to me, this is by far one of the better ones that I've seen form-wise. There's also Contact Form 7. I know Kira and I had a really big problem dealing with Contact Form 7 when it was trying to send data, or we were trying to get it to work with, oh, I can't remember exactly which one it was, but I think it was Slack, actually, trying to send notifications to Slack, something like that. So Gravity Forms is my go-to. All right, okay, so I'm gonna save this draft, and then I'm gonna go to Forms and New Form. If you've never used Gravity Forms before, it's actually really simple to use. You can use whichever one you want, okay? But this is just what I like to use myself. So this is the name and the email. The other thing that I like to do, though it is not required, is I like to, on almost every form that I have, I will bug you all to hell about getting you to be on my mailing list, okay? Use every chance you have. First of all, I'm going to make this a required field, okay? I'm going to make the email a required field. And I'm going to, this is a privacy policy one, but I like to edit it and say, I agree to be added to the mailing list. Right? Whatever thing you want to be done. I do not make this required unless it is specifically you're signing up for my mailing list. This is not. This is just you're contacting me. Okay. So I'm not going to make that a requirement for this particular form. The other thing I want to be able to do is say, what is it you want to tell me? Right. So I'm going to actually drop that in here and say comments. And I'm going to make that required. Right. There's your form. Done. The beauty about Gravity Forms, if you've never used it, is also that you can actually send this to different places like Slack. I can get an email. I can send it to an integration in MailChimp. I can do a lot of stuff with this. With this one right now, it's not really going to do much, but we don't really need it to. But you would go through settings, and you can also see your entries and download them, etc. from here. Okay, but I'm not going to go through all of that. Does that make sense? Any questions so far about that? Okay. I just installed this afternoon because, like I said, I don't use Jetpack anymore. So, so now we know which one this is. Now, before, you had to remember what the short code was and what form it was, which ID it was to actually embed it, and all that other fun stuff. So I'm going to update this. Okay, so this has now been updated. We now have a form called Contact Shanta. And now I'm going to go to my pages. There's my Contact Shanta page. And now all I have to do is say I want to enter forms. And there's my form. I want to select the Contact Shanta, and there it is. That's pretty much it, right? And again, so you can see that it's I agree to be added, and the submit button, which you can also format, right? The other thing that I wanted to add on here, you can also add, especially if you have a brick and mortar type store, is your address. You can add maps. Again, for the demo purposes, I used something through Jetpack that allowed you to insert a map, but you can always install something from Google Maps or whatever have you to do that, that kind of stuff. I can also just add at the bottom, I think there is, yeah, the address block was also probably part of, was also part of Jetpack, okay? So it actually allowed you to actually enter in the specific address so that you could add phone numbers and things like that. But again, there are so many blocks out there that can be used for this kind of stuff. It's really, like, it's mind blowing. There's almost more blocks right now than there probably are plugins and themes. There's, I'm trying to think of the name of the company. David, I don't know if you know it, is they've come out with their own theme. It wasn't Kinsta, it was something else.
I mean, there's Cadence, but I'm not sure that's the right one.
I think it was Cadence. Cadence has their own theme, and then they have their own blocks on top of that, which is pretty insane. They have so many, it just blows my mind. Really, it's far too much for my brain. So basically, there's your form. We're going to preview this. And that's basically all it's going to do. And you see that the theme is controlling how it's viewed, right? So it's not like, it doesn't look the same here as it does actually in the actual presentation of the page, which is okay. I'd rather have it look proper on the preview itself as opposed to in this editor. Like, I really don't mind, but I'd rather have it, clearer on the other one. Does that make sense? Questions about anything? No? Okay. I'm going to publish this. Remember, everything has to be published. I'm going to copy the link here, by the way, and then go back to my previous page, which is the About Shanta page. I'm going to edit this and then click on this. And I'm going to add the link. And there it is. I can also have that open in a new tab if I want. If you are sending somebody off your site, you're probably better off to have them open it in a new tab, but this is on my own site, so it's not a big deal. Okay. And then I'm just going to update that. So far, so good? Okay. So now what we have are some of the basic building blocks, and I have a bunch of posts in here as well that will also guide us. So for the moment, so this is the actual Tantanhime site. I'm just going to pause for a second. David, there's someone named Steve who's in the waiting room. I don't know if you need to admit him or not.
I probably do.
Yeah.
Actually, I think you need to because you're the host.
Oh,
I don't have the ability.
Well, then I will do that. I thought it was a co-host. Sorry. Okay. All right. Welcome, Steve. Sorry about that. Okay, so what we have now is basically the site. And again, if you see that I've refreshed this, it still doesn't show me my contact page, my about page, nothing. Okay. So this is a problem. And this is where a lot of people really do ignore the fact that you have to have a navigation. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is create the menu, and then we're going to talk about the home page. Okay, and posts and all that other stuff. Okay, so I'm in the about page here. I have a contact page. Those are all published. They're set. I personally am not a big fan of the customization route for the menus. I like it old school. So I go into menus, right from appearance and menus. I've created this one here, and you'll notice that there's nothing in it. Default out of the box, WordPress will put pages into your navigation. Okay, whatever pages you have published, it will just do that. And believe me, I've done an entire talk on information architecture, so I'm not going to talk about that today as to why you should have, you know, only so many limited ones or not, but bear with me while I go through that. So right now, there isn't anything contained in this. If I was to say, you know, I'm not even using a custom menu or say select menu, it would automatically put all the pages that I have at the top. You want to be able to control that, okay? Because WordPress in and of itself does not insert them in any sort of order or hierarchy without you, okay? So I'm going to quickly create the menu so that you can see how it operates. And then we're going to deal with things like the home page and static and so on, okay? So first of all, I'm going to uncheck automatically add pages. You should have this all figured out ahead of time. Again, another talk, another time, but do not let WordPress add those pages automatically. Okay, that should not happen. I'm putting this in the primary location. This particular theme has 3 locations for menus. Okay, I can put it in the primary menu, I can do a footer menu, or I can do a social links one. Okay, and this actually, I think, is the, yeah, this is the 2019 theme. So this is like WordPress standard stuff here. So I can put a footer menu, which is typically where you put like your utility type stuff, like your terms of service. You might put your contact page in there and other things as well. Company pages, things like that, okay? But this is the primary one that we're gonna deal with. So I'm gonna say I want the About Shanta page and I want the contact page. I'm gonna leave the blog for a moment, and I don't like the term blog, so bear with me. I'm breaking my own rules, but again, talk for another time. And I'm just gonna add those to the menu. Now you'll see that it just added them in the order in which they were checked. First of all, the About page should always go closer to the left. Contact should always go closer to the right. That's usually where we are trained to see those. If I now go to the site and I refresh, nothing happens. This is something that our students were absolutely notorious for. You have to save the menu. Otherwise, you are not going to be able to see that menu, okay? So now I've saved the menu. When I go back here, I can now see About and Contact. Make sense? Cool. So I'm going to come back to the blog one in just a moment, but first let's talk about what we're going to have on our front page. Now, most of the time you are going to have your own setup for a homepage. Okay, I haven't created a separate homepage for this because there are so many different possibilities. It's endless. You could have your page builder to build, images with side by side with text, etc. There were just far too many possibilities here. You design your homepage however you see fit. Okay, that's the goal here. My job is to show you how to set it as your homepage. Does that make sense? Cool. So now I am going to use the customize, and I'm going to go into the homepage settings. So right now this is set to use my latest posts, right? And this feature has actually been around in WordPress for ages and ages and ages. But now they have a slightly different way to present it. So I'm going to say I want a static page actually. Okay. Now I'm going to come back to this blog in a second, but let's say, for example, I want this test page. What have I got on there? Anything? Good. Okay. Let's assume for the moment that I have designed this beautiful home page. And this is the page that I want to show as my home page. Okay. So this is my test page. That is what I'm going to show when you go to the site. Now, if you have a home page as your a static home page, you then have to tell WordPress, okay, where do you want me to put your posts? And those you can put under whatever name you want to call it. Okay. Don't call it blog. Okay. I've simply called it that for sake of, but bear with me. Okay. I'm really not a big fan of calling it the blog. Okay. So this just means now if I go to the blog page, then it will have this here. Okay. All it's doing is saying, okay, if you're not going to put them on the home page, where do you want me to put them? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And what I mean by that is that, to me, all your blog posts should not be under something just called blog. And nor should that belong in your menu. There are very, very few chances where I've seen it and it works. To me, there's a whole other way of doing it. But I'll leave that for another day. But I'll show you what I mean. You have to pick a page. But that doesn't mean I have to add it to the menu. Okay? So all you're doing is setting the test page as your home page and then saying, I want to shove all of my posts onto blog because they have to go somewhere. Does that make sense? Cool. I'm going to publish this. So now when I go to my test site and I click here, I now see test page is my home page. It's nothing special, but again, you get the idea. And you see about and you see contact. The thing that's missing is the blog, right? Or all of your posts. Where do they go? Now, if you wanted to design your homepage to show them in some other way, great. I'm going to show you at least how to implement that through the menu, but without using the term blog, okay? So I'm going to exit from the customizer. I'm going to go back to my menus. And these are all of my pages. And you'll see here that this blog has my post page. So if I add that to my menu, that is then going to show all of my posts. That is, to me, lazy. It's not a good way to get people to see the stuff that's on your site. There may be other things that you need to add to your menu. Totally fine. I get it. But especially if you're running more of a blog type site, you shouldn't have something just called blog in your menu. You need to get people to the content faster. So what I like to do is I would rather do categories. Okay. And again, I'm not going to get in my whole information architecture talk, but I wanted you to know that when you set up a static homepage, WordPress makes you choose a blog page, but that doesn't mean you have to use it. So what I've done here is I actually have a bunch of categories that I would rather see in my menu to guide my users to where they want to go. This is that whole wayfinding thing I was talking about. So I'm going to just select all, but I'm going to uncheck uncategorize. There should never be anything uncategorized on your site, ever, ever. Again, I'm ranting. Learning management systems. I'm going to take out this lab one. Okay. And you'll notice that they're all indented. That's because I've actually originally set up the main category as well as the other categories, the subcategories. So don't mind me on that. Yeah, I know, Kira, but you know how I hate that much. Come on. Okay, so here they all are. I'm just going to quickly move these into place. Again, we can talk about that another time if you want. But education, journal, learning management system, and WordCamps, Doctor Who. Yes, I'm a big Doctor Who fan. Wonder Woman, Ireland, Galway, martial arts, karate, and Kabuto. And then I'm going to take the contact and move it right down to the bottom. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items in my menu. I'm good with that. again, we can chat about that afterwards, but I want to at least get to where the menu is okay. So now what I've done is I've inserted the menu the way I want it. And now I will see about education, fun, Ireland, martial arts, and then contact. Okay. So what I've done here is I've now, instead of using the term blog in my links in my menu, all of these are posts, by the way. They're actually categories, but they of course lead you to posts. That's what I'm getting at. So I've now been able to get my users to what they want to see faster, right? You know, for example, if they're coming to just read about martial arts, do they want to read a ton of posts about education, Ireland, and just other general fun? No, they want to come and see about martial arts. So they go here and then click on whatever they want. Okay. Again, we can chat about that afterwards. Okay. So really that is most of what I was going to show, was sort of how do you do this really quickly and get the basics down so that you can, you know, at least see the components that you absolutely must have for any website that you're building, regardless of who you are. You should have a contact page, you should have an about, and then also a customized menu, whether it's here or otherwise, and then know how to insert those things. The other thing I was going to show was also about, so this has now been saved, right? This menu is great. I also want to go to manage location. So as I said, there are 3 different menus here. I've already pre-populated the social one, but I can show you how that works in just a moment. It just so happens that this one does have a social menu. And I'm going to save the changes. I'm also going to go back here. I'm going to show you what the social menu looks like. So all I've done here is basically put in a bunch of custom links, right? So this is Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, yada, yada, whatever, right? I literally just copied the link in and what the title is, like GitHub, etc. And I've now told this social menu that I want you to appear in the social links menu per the theme, okay? And I haven't changed anything here, but I'm going to save it anyways. So now when I go back to the test site and I refresh, it has all my links there. That's built into the theme itself. So, I mean, really, this is most of what I wanted to show, unless people had questions. This isn't really, you know, showing all the advanced features of Gutenberg. It's basically meant to give you the basics. Is there anything that anybody wanted me to show or that they were interested in seeing?
Shanta, can you please go back to the menu locations and what exactly you did over there? I missed it.
Okay, so I'm editing the social links menu. And all I did for this one, again, this is part of the theme itself. Okay, and all I did was I put in the URL for my Twitter and what the navigation label is, which is what you see at this point here, right? You don't actually see it on the theme on the front end, but this is just to identify what it is. Like I could have just put Twitter, and that's all it is, right? So I added these in advance. I added them to a menu called social. And then I went, I'm going to save that menu. I then went to manage locations, which is, okay, I have in this theme, I have 3 menu locations. One is the header, right, which is the primary menu. One is the social links menu, which is wherever the theme is placing it, which in this case is right below the primary menu, and then a footer menu. I didn't design a footer menu, but I can do whatever I can in that one. And then all I did was I said on the social links menu, I want you to use the social items that I've placed in that menu. and I want you to take that menu and put it here. And the theme automatically recognizes that this is a social menu.
So
Does that help?
basically the theme already had it defined that the social menu would be placed over here. If anybody adds a social menu, then it's gonna be placed over here. Okay.
Hang on. I called it social and I added all of those custom links. The theme is interpreting those items as being those social items and is displaying them thusly. So if I change the theme, that may not even have its own social menu.
Right.
This particular theme does. This is the 2019 theme.
And even if it has a social menu, the new theme, it might not be placed exactly over here. It can be placed at any other place as per the theme also.
Correct. Correct. There are a number of themes that have a number of different menu options. They have, you know, some of them have as many as like 5 different locations. You can put it in the sidebar, you can put it in the footer, you can put it wherever. But again, that depends on the theme itself and what settings those that are offered with that theme.
So Shanta, in this theme, you can't move that social menu to the footer area. Is that correct?
Let's find out.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm going to do footer menu, social. I'm going to have it in both. Okay,
But it probably wouldn't have the icons.
let's find out. Twitter, Facebook. Yep, Dave's correct. It did not recognize them as icons. And again, that is controlled within the theme itself.
Now you can create a child theme and actually move if you wanted that particular location to be displayed in the footer. So you carry those styles. You could do that, but you basically would have to create a child theme of the 2019 thing, or you'd have a custom theme that you created.
Correct. Correct. Are there any other questions? Anything else that people want to see? I just feel like that was really, really simple, basic stuff. But like I said, I wanted to sort of marry the idea of, again, this is specifically designed for people who had basically never touched Gutenberg before, who were brand new, not so much a developer level, but this was sort of, oh God, you know, how does this thing work? And I need to get the basics of my website up and running. So here's the basics tied with how you do it. That was sort of the general consensus of this. But I have toyed around with it a little bit more since. But, you know, like I said, if there's anything that anybody else wants to see, then I can do that.
Now, but adding the blocks, do you ever use the quick search by using the / and the editor?
I used to a little bit, but not very often. So what he's referring to is if I go into a post, for example, and I click in here, I can literally just click like that, and it will present a list of whatever I want to show. So like a heading, etc. I think I did use it a couple of times, maybe about a year ago. Not even a year ago, a couple of months ago. 2020 has been a big year, so you know it could have been last week for all I know. Is there anything anybody else needed me to show or see or questions about anything else?
I've got a question.
Sure, Steve.
I'm sorry I missed the first half hour.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that I was the host, so I apologize for not letting you in sooner. That's my fault.
That's okay.
Sorry.
By the way, my name's Steve Organic, and I'm from the Rochester WordPress Group. And Shanta invited me to see your presentation here. I'm an embedded software developer, but I've been supporting my church's website. I started I took over the church's website, which was a 2001 vintage HTML site, and converted it to WordPress. So I've been spending a lot of time, probably about 10 years now, working on WordPress. But Gutenberg is new to me, and I guess my question is do you have to have it looks like you have to have a different mindset than the old way of creating pages when you're working with all of these blocks. Did you find that when you started out?
In what sense?
Just that you're thinking, well, at least when you're developing
Mm-hmm.
the old way, like a page layout, it just seemed to me that it's more almost like a script or a text description, like almost like HTML, but not quite. But then here you're really kind of like in a world of, oh, the blocks can be anywhere and they can do anything, kind of, they're interacting objects more than the way. So, I mean, that's kind of how I feel about it. And it's all new to me and I'm still nervous about it.
So think about it this way, Steve. The biggest thing for me, especially when I was showing, and I know that you came in a bit late, so I do apologize. Let me just get rid of this. I'm going to go to leave. And I'm going to go to the About Me page. This was something that I did right off the bat. And all of these, by the way, I copied out of a Word document.
Okay.
Like I literally in one fell swoop took all of the paragraphs, all of the things without, well, this is the other page, but you get the idea. It's a similar sort of layout. What I did was I literally took the entire text from Word, dropped it in here and hit paste. And what it did was it actually created separate blocks for each paragraph, which is exactly what you're supposed to do in HTML.
Right.
Every paragraph has its own P tag. That's what this does. Right?
Yep.
The fact that you can align things to the left or to the right or whatever is very much like that sort of HTML feel. I know that one of the things that, so Matt and I were working on a project recently where we had to build a certain interface or a certain homepage design the way that the client wanted it. And he said, you know what, I could sit here and I could fight with Gutenberg for a while, or I can just install Beaver Builder and get it done in half the time or less than half the time. So, there are some presentations out there that will say, you know what, screw Gutenberg and just go with whatever. The reason I like at least demonstrating in things like this is that this is out of the box. This is how it comes. And I'm assuming in most cases that the people that I'm presenting to, this group is slightly different, but most of the people that I'm presenting to are brand new. Like they've never done this before in their lives. So before we start talking to them about evaluating this, builder versus that builder versus whatever, they need to at least understand what blocks are. So the fact that it's already there, I like to at least say, look, this is how you get your website up and running in like 30 minutes. And let's worry about everything later. Like you're not doing a deep dive here, right? This is at least just getting your hands dirty. And then before, then once you've decided, okay, I need to go to a different builder, whatever, you start playing around with your homepage, etc. Okay, great. Then you can make those sorts of decisions. But for this, it's just meant to be really basic. I think WordPress or Automatic is at least trying to make this into more so that it can compete against those page builders, more website builders, right? That's the whole point. If you go to something like, I'm not even going to mention their names because quite frankly, it's not worth it. Those other page building sites that, and Paul has just joined us as well from Canada, and he's our SEO guy. And he will tell you probably better than I can how bad those things are at SEO. They are horrible. Anyway, ending the rant again. But the idea here is that they're trying to compete with those. And so I think if they didn't do this, that they would have had a lot of people leaving. So they had to move forward. How they moved forward, how far they go, that's another discussion. But I do know that they did when Gutenberg first came out, the accessibility levels were not good at all. They were actually through the floor. So that's not exactly a good way to start, because they didn't think with that in mind going forward. So
And I think
do
when you're
want to.
seeing, oh, sorry.
sorry.
I definitely think with the like the block patterns that are coming out now, basically I think you're going to see it's going to evolve more. But definitely, like Shanta said, I think the mindset, at least how I see it with Gutenberg, is that it's giving the content owner more power with the content than it was leaving it all on the theme. Because basically before WordPress, a lot of it was just everything was being handled by the theme, by the page template, and then you had page builders. And like she said, I think that's what sort of pushed WordPress towards Gutenberg. I definitely think Gutenberg is going to keep growing and definitely get more and more customizable.
Mhm.
Also, I do want to add that my perception of Gutenberg is that, if you look at the other editors that Shanta wouldn't mention, say Divi or any of those things, there's a potential to, if you hand this over to your customer, that they could actually break the site, right? Because it gives you too much tweaking power. And so it's kind of a fine balance between like build it all into the theme in your templates using like, ACF or whatever it is to surface out to your customers, but then they get locked into that, or having a way to separate presentation from content. And I think that's where Gutenberg blocks come in. Like you can't break them, right? You can go in, you delete stuff, you could like add classes, you could do stuff, but it's all going to show the way you're intending it to show. And that would be the kind of power of Gutenberg versus some of these other page builders. Like people are used to using the other page builders to build it out exactly how they want it. But like you said, a lot of them are like nested with a bunch of divs and, extra spans and all that stuff. And, and then you can actually tweak like alignment, margin, all these other things where, really breaks the site. But with Gutenberg, it's assumed that all the responsiveness is already done for you. Certain presentations are already done for you. All you're doing is entering content.
See, and that's, I guess, always been my mentality. I am not a designer. Okay. I am terrible at design. I will be the first one to tell you that. And I told my students that. And oddly enough, I was in the faculty of art, animation, and design. But I said, I am not here to code it. I would rather leave more of the, again, this is just my personal mentality. Somebody has gone through the trouble of designing that theme. If I'm going to dissect it that much, I should either build my own or build a child theme and do it as part of the theme. The whole point of a theme is to keep things consistent, right? Things like fonts, things like sizes, things like, just like we do in HTML and CSS. You should not be doing inline styling for any sort of HTML. So that is where the CSS comes in. And that is where, if you're going to put a header in, okay, so that's done at the H1 level. That is not done at that specific ID for every ID that you have to have it occur at, right? So my mentality has always been, if that's what the theme is supposed to do, then let the theme do it, right? Don't try and override the theme for every goddamn piece of thing that's in there, right? So that's why I spend a lot more time choosing a theme, and I'm very simple when it comes to that stuff. The other problem, and actually the sites that I was talking about weren't actually other page builders. They were actually other web builders like Wix, Squarespace, things like that. That's why they had to come up with Gutenberg, was to actually compete with them, not necessarily the other page builders, but to actually compete with other CMSs. And if they didn't put it in there, they were going to die. And that's where they were going to lose a lot. So my feeling is that if you're going to design a homepage or whatever, that's great. If you are going to go and design each and every single page or post to be different, you're not doing it right. There is supposed to be a certain level of consistency. That's what the blocks are for, right? if you're going to start doing one of this and one of that and one of this, whether it's blocks, whether it's pages, whether it's, you know, colors, fonts, you're doing exactly what you're taking a huge step back. So to me, using the blocks that are in Gutenberg and using Gutenberg itself is a step in the right direction. It's not the end all be all, by all means. But one of the problems that WordPress was having is that it was losing clients, not just because it didn't have a page builder, was because it was so complicated. I know that I took a look at Divi once and I almost cried. And I'm a developer. I will not use Divi. I will not use Elementor. I look at them and I go, this is mental. Why would you have that if you already have a theme that builds all of this? You shouldn't be building block upon block upon block unless it's just your homepage, really, right? Or some very specific types of things. But your blog post should look the same. Like, it shouldn't be rocket science. So to me, letting the theme take that control. And if you really want that color in there, go to the theme and change it. Don't change it in the page itself. Deal with it at the theme level.
And actually with CSS or SS in your themes now, you actually can customize the color profile. That's like I really gotten into recently my client projects is that I use the theme to change the color profile in Gutenberg blocks. So I'm setting the colors so that way, like you said, they're allowing the theme to sort of help with so that they can see what the fonts and the colors are supposed to be both on the front and the back end. So there's also that ability too.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm not a designer and maybe I'm, you know, talking out of turn, but I'm just one of those people who's like, the theme is, otherwise, why do we have the theme in the first place? Then just, otherwise we should just build it from scratch and go back to where, you know, let's date ourselves back 10 years. Right. And to your point, Dave, about locking it down, I believe there is a way to lock Gutenberg down so that your client doesn't screw with it. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that you can do that. And if you don't trust your clients that much, then yes, maybe you should go to something else that will allow you to lock those things down to a certain thing. And quite frankly, you know, depending on what trust you have in your client, I shouldn't say trust, what feeling you have in their ability to break or not break, then they shouldn't have an administrator level anyways. Right? They may have an editor level or something to that effect, and you should change that. But, you know, and so if you're going to be afraid that they're going to break something, then that is a conversation that you should really be having with your client. And that's why you do backups. And that's why you would have that conversation right up front and say, okay, who's going to be doing this? Who's going to be doing that? And you know that if you break it and I have to restore it, then you're going to be billed for that. You can play around with it all you want, but you're going to pay for it if I have to restore it. Right? So that, again, that's a conversation that you should be having with your client, right? Not just saying, oh, they're going to screw it up right off the bat.
I think as our generation, it's through the transition from the old way of developing pages where we had the WYSIWYG and text options, which I've even used the text option or the HTML options more than the WYSIWYG because it always screws it up. We're at kind of a disadvantage because we're doing the transition. I think the next generation who just knows only Gutenberg is going to be way ahead. They don't have to know the old way. And it's going to make it, they're not going to have these conflicts that we have now. Because I know myself, I'm still hesitant about using Gutenberg. And I'm deciding whether or not, you know, should I change my current website for my church to go to Gutenberg or not, because the theme is expiring. And, you know, I have to teach the staff how to use Gutenberg then. So it's one of those questions where you're kind of on the edge with it. But I think it was smart of WordPress to move in this direction to compete with some of the other website, the web designing tools like Wix and Squarespace. But the next generation of WordPress developers aren't going to worry about it. They're just going to learn the new way and it'll be fine.
Well, and change is inevitable, right? Like,
yep.
this was coming for quite a while. So, you know, it's either that or we just decide to go to something else, and we don't, because we know that it's growing, right? WordPress is going to, you know, is up to what, 36% now? I think at last count, it's about 36%. It probably will be by the time the state of the word comes around next month. So, you know, it's going to keep going and going and going. Right.
Shanta, can we come back to your About Me page? I just want to understand how you place that image on the top right side, your image.
Oh, sure. Yeah, give me one sec. Let me show you again.
Yeah. So I can do that as a developer, but I have never done that as a Gutenberg user image, which you've got on the right side.
So this is just its own block.
Right.
And I just aligned it to the right. So let me see if I can do it maybe further down here. Okay, so I'm going to go here, and I'm going to add a new block. I'm going to call an image. Okay, I'm going to go to the media library. It's been one of my favorites lately. And I'm going to go to align right. Now you can see here how it's sort of screwing up this part here, right? But then again, I can also make it smaller. That's it.
So we need to place it correctly so that it aligns with this particular paragraph only. Okay, so it has to be placed between these two paragraphs. Fine.
Sorry, it needs to be placed where? Between what?
These two paragraphs, if we want it over here.
No, not necessarily. Again, if I align this to the left, right? All I did was go to the top of this paragraph and add a block. That's it. So
Okay.
it's basically it's kind of like what Word used to do, right? Where you would actually say, I want this to be aligned not to, it wasn't to the page. I'm aligning it to the paragraph. Does that make sense? It's the same sort of idea. Same sort of idea.
Thanks for this.
My pleasure. Any other questions?
I'm curious, have you ever used reusable blocks?
Yes. Yes, I have.
What do you think about it?
I think it's very handy. There are definitely reasons for it. For example, I use it on our WordPress Hamilton website because at the end of every post, I want there to be a sign up area, or at least a block or a button, right? That says you can either sign up for our mailing list here, or you know, see where we are on the next meetup, right? So I embed the meetup there, etc. So I have you know, those pieces. So it's not that the block itself is reusable, it's that I group the 3 blocks together and then say, I want to, you know, I'll call this the meetup block or whatever you want to call it. And then say, insert that at the end of the post. So to me, it's like a template. Right? You're not necessarily using code to insert that. I mean, I'm sure that there's a way that you could, you know, easily do code to say, I want this block to show at the end of every post. But what if you don't want it that one time? Or what if you need to change it? Right? And then it becomes, okay, so is this an instance of that block, or is it a, you know, is it the same, like, do I need it to change across everything? Like, is it just a template? Is it a referential or an absolute? Right? Like we used to do in Excel. Yeah, I know, I'm an Excel geek. So, but what it does is that if you change that reusable block, it does not, as far as I know, it does not go back and change any other blocks that it's already created. Okay, so when you insert a block, it's an instance of that block, right? It's a copy. So that now when you go to the next one, let's say that you've changed the order. Oh, okay, I want the buttons on top and not, instead of the meetup. Well, it won't go back and change those, right? It will just do it going forward, as far as I know.
Yeah, I think it depends.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you change the original one, it would just change that one. If you try to change the other ones, it'll change all of them. It's weird. And then you can actually get to a list of reusable blocks. You know, you can get to there from a menu, and you see all the other ones because it's just a custom post type
Mm-hmm.
called reusable blocks, I think. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think that might be an interesting thing to show next time. Is there's like little tricky things about the
Mm-hmm.
reusable blocks that, you know, took me a while to figure out.
Right. Yeah, no, I think it still does just use an instance of it. Like it doesn't go back and refer still.
Yeah.
And yeah, I saw, I'm sorry Asim had to leave, but I saw the chat going there with him and with Kira about, you know, like if you want to insert that, fine. But then that's not a reusable block. That becomes a reusable template.
Right.
That's different. Right? Again, if you're, you know, you've got to just know which tool to use. Right.
That works at the PHP level. It makes it really easy for you to force your users to have that as like the surrounding, like they get to write in here and then all the other things are just there all the time.
Mm-hmm. But
Have you seen that?
You can also
there's
create
that,
a WordPress, a Gutenberg template, like a
yeah.
Gutenberg page template, and say, this is the one that I want to use. And then all you do is when you say new, you create a new page using that particular template. But just like Word, if you use the template stays intact, but what you use doesn't get updated if the template gets updated.
Right.
Right. But what Kira is referring to is that if you do it by PHP, then it would probably go back and change it. So it's a matter of what do you want it to do?
Yep.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying be very clear with what your intent is.
So I have a page that's basically a list of staff members, and there's a picture and there's a description and an email address. How would you do that in Gutenberg? Is that what you're talking about with a reusable block?
You
Would
could
you actually have to have a block that way, or would you take a bunch of blocks and kind of group them and then reuse that?
So interestingly, I was on a call today with our dear friend Nathan Ingram. If you've never heard of Nathan Ingram, he's really an amazing guy. Let me see if I can find it for you. I actually just put together WordPress author.
Because I think the way they did it was with a custom post type, with so that you would have.
Yeah, you can still do that. That's true. You can still do that. So let me show you something that I saw today that may be exactly that kind of an idea, maybe. So once a month, Nathan Ingram does what they call their plugin roundup. And I found some really amazing stuff from them today. The biggest one I think that everybody voted on was the fact that there was a recipe one. I don't care. Personally, that's just not me. But a lot of people were like, oh my God, there's something for recipes. Great. This is something that may help you, Steve. So this is a simple author box that actually will add it to it. You can actually add this into the user's profile. Okay. So this doesn't, bear aside the page for a second, right? If you actually can do this at the profile level, okay, like a WordPress user profile, this actually puts this stuff in there and it says, okay, this may be your gravatar, but do you want to use a different profile picture? Okay, so it allows you to do that. You know, it does show the gravatar, but you have the option to do other things. And then there's like a premium version, etc. I'm trying to see if, I know that they showed he showed how it worked on their thing here. Hang on. They used to have like some nice screenshot type things, but I don't think they have it anymore.
So is this a plugin or is this a Gutenberg block?
This is a plugin.
Okay.
And what it allows you to then do is insert it basically allows you to insert a block with that author's stuff. So it almost formats it for you.
Nice.
Again, I
She
haven't
also-
delved into this. This was just one that was suggested today. But you know, it shows like you can have guest authors, simple author, you know, multiple authors. You can actually have multiple authors on the same post. So I think that the idea with this is that, you know, when you have like an article like on a newspaper, and they'll have all the writing and the entire story, and at the bottom there's that piece about the author or about the person who wrote the article, right? That's more or less what this is used for, but it may work for exactly what you're talking about. It will probably save you the trouble of going through and changing it. And it might be worth a look. I'll give you the link to it in the chat here. Hang on. Do, 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 do. Do, do, do. There you go.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, it may help.
Mhm.
Right. Thanks, Kira. Everybody has to drop off. I get it. But like, and actually, this is what it's showing right here. This is the screenshot. I knew it had a screenshot somewhere. So that's actually what it shows, right? This is the person. This is their name. This is whatever, and these are all their socials. Right.
Yep.
And ideally, you shouldn't really be, you know, again, my personal opinion, you should not be putting people's emails on their website.
Right, just a button or something that says contact whoever.
Yeah, and have them fill out a form or something, because otherwise you're going to get spammed like crazy.
Yep.
Right. So there you go. It can be like this. You know, apparently it's got a couple of others. So this is their colored icon circles. Right. You can have it just black and white. It's actually not too bad. Kind of cool.
Neat.
And that's how it looks on a mobile device. That may save you some trouble.
Yeah.
If you're looking at authors, to be fair, like that's exactly what this is designed for. But, you know, it may be worthwhile. Yeah, if you've never attended one of the talks from Nathan Ingram, it's really worth it. Even if it's not everything, like I don't think I would have necessarily thought about this unless it was in that thing this afternoon. And, you know, somebody asked me tonight and here it is, right? This is how everything works in the WordPress world, right? Any other questions or anything from anybody, or anything they need to see, or? No? Alrighty then. Well, I'll tell you what, David, why don't I hand you back the host event? And I'm gonna, there you go.
Cool.
Change. There you go. It's back to you.
Well, thank you.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you, Shanta. Very, very impressive
Yes.
presentation.
Thank you.
Great.
Very
Okay,
good.
I'm sorry it was so like really sort of basic, but that was sort of the idea that I had. But at least it gives us an idea of how we can improve it, and building blocks. And if you want, I did a talk at Hamilton about whether or not Gutenberg blocks were going to replace CPTs and ACFs. So if you want to dig any more into that, you can look it up on WordPress.tv with my name. The other one is if you want to dig more into the menu stuff that I was talking about, is to, again, on WordPress.tv, the latest one I think was Rochester in 2019. 2019, I did it about organizing your content. So it's basically how do you determine what you put in your menu and how you get there. It's about a 45-minute long thing, but it's something that is hugely overlooked. And I think it's worth everybody digging into. It's not just about how you create your menu, but it's about how you organize the content to put into the menu so that people can find it. And I find that it's just hugely overlooked. So I rant about it all the time. Oh, and yeah, if anybody wants to get, I'm going to post my slides to my site, which I'm going to post there. I'll post it shortly after the talk, if not by tomorrow morning, and I'll even post the link on Meetup.
Cool. Yeah, and basically I'm pasting the link to the Northeast Ohio WordPress YouTube channel. And there will be this video, so in case you want to rewatch or miss something, will be there.
Thank
Also,
you.
she mentioned Nathan Ingram. He spoke at the last couple WordCamp Kents. There's some great videos from this past year's camp in there also, along with every other talk we had at WordCamp Kent 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's gonna be it. Last piece of housekeeping, as I mentioned earlier, at the very beginning. Next month's meetup will be on December the 1st at 6 o'clock. It's going to be a holiday game night. So like we did a couple months ago, there's a video for that going to be up on our YouTube. Want to check it out, where we basically play Jackbox games. We happen to catch David Bassett's WP Game Show at a different one of the WordCamps. Same idea, where we sort of get everybody together. We play a couple games and just sort of have fun hanging out with our local WordPress community. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out using the Meetup channel or through our Slack channel.
Thank
Well,
you,
good
Dave,
luck
for
to
the
all you
invite.
guys with the voting today. Bless you all. Good luck. However you want it to come out.